Shall I call the meeting to order, please?
Yes.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being part of our first virtual Board of Education meeting in Egg Harbor Township. So I'd like to formally call the meeting to order, and at this time, ask our Business Administrator, Ms. Anaya, to read the Open Public Meetings Act statement, please.
On Wednesday, January 8th, 2020, notice of this meeting was mailed to the press and the Current of Egg Harbor Township. Notice was also delivered that day to the Egg Harbor Township Clerk and posted on the bulletin board in Township Hall. On Friday, April 17th, virtual instruction for this meeting was posted on our website and social media.
Thank you. May we have roll call?
Mr. Della Barca,
Yes, here.
Mr. Ellis, Mrs. Gilbert Floyd,
Here.
Mr. Price,
Mr. Price is here.
thank you, Mrs. Sullivan,
Here.
Mrs. Summer,
Here.
Mrs. Salagi,
Here.
Mrs. Bird,
Here.
and Mr. Castellano.
Here. Okay, at this time, we are going to salute the flag. After we do so, I would like to have a moment of silence for all those who we have lost and all those who are suffering from the COVID-19 virus. Can we please all stand and salute the flag, which will appear on your screen? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. At this time, we'd like to go over some information about this virtual meeting. We want to thank the community and the board for your patience as we work through this new virtual board meeting as part of our response to the governor's stay-at-home executive order number 107. To call in and ask questions or make a comment, please dial 609-653-0100 extension 1417 during the public comment portion of the meeting. Please do not leave a voicemail for public comment as it will not be received. Continue to call until you reach a live operator or moderator. And due to call volume, this may require several attempts to call in. And to please anticipate a 30-second delay for the broadcast to reach the stream. At this time, I'll turn it over to the board president.
Thank you very much, Chandra. I just want to open with some very brief remarks before we start our superintendent's report. We are faced with a very difficult and unprecedented time. The information and the guidance that we're receiving about how to keep our schools running through the COVID-19 crisis changes daily, if not hourly. There is some good news in Egg Harbor Township, and that is our students are continuing to learn. And that's thanks to the great faculty and staff we have here in Egg Harbor Township. So I want to say some thank yous. I want to thank Dr. Gruccio and Ms. Anaya for their leadership. I want to thank our teachers, our paras, and our IT professionals, everyone who is making virtual learning possible. Education continues in Egg Harbor Township. I want to thank our cafeteria workers, bus drivers, security guards who have been providing meals to the students who are in need of them. I want to thank all of our faculty and staff, everyone, those who have helped to provide the support and guidance that our students need. We've been providing Chromebooks as needed. We've been providing advice and guidance. And I want to take this opportunity to say to anyone viewing, if there's anything we can do for you, please contact us and we'll do our best. We're here tonight as a board to do our part to see that learning continues. However, all of us understand that these are difficult times economically as well. We know what's going on in the world, the nation, the state, the county, and in our township. So we're here for you and we're here to listen to you. As I said at prior meetings, we're EHT strong. We will make it through this. Thank you for being here. I'm now going to turn this over to Dr. Gruccio, who is going to give her report.
Good evening, everyone, and hello. Nice to see everyone again, and welcome to our first virtual work session. I believe the last time we were all together was the first day of closure. We were all in the boardroom, all spaced out, and entering unknown territory. I'd like to begin as well, echoing Mr. Castellano in thanking the Egg Harbor Township school community, our teachers, staff, students, Board of Education, administration, and our parents for making a quick transition to virtual teaching and learning. I want to thank everyone for being flexible regarding changes that we have made along the way and for understanding that county and state directions, and understandably so, are constantly changing as the situation moves forward. This is certainly new territory for all of us. I feel like I went to bed one night and woke up into the future, but I sit here proud, as a proud superintendent, knowing that I'm surrounded by such dedicated professionals who are not only innovative and passionate, but are absolutely love and care for the students of Egg Harbor Township. And that's a great feeling to have. I'm going to give a quick update on things that we're doing during this emergency closure of our school buildings. And I emphasize that because our schools are not closed. Education is going on, and we're very proud and confident to know that virtual teaching and learning is occurring PK to 12. Each week we are distributing over 10,000 meals to families in need. We've loaned approximately 600 Chromebooks to our students. We've offered professional development to our teachers and parents on the virtual tools that we're using. We're providing social and emotional learning and related services to our school children and families. And I emphasize here that we have supports for you. So if there's anything that's needed, please let us know, because we are looking to become even more innovative as we are redesigning the norm. With all that said, as Mr. Castellano said before me, if there's anyone, a parent or a student that's having difficulty with any aspect of virtual learning, technology, internet connections, lessons, or having access to food, please let us know. I urge you to reach out to a teacher, a counselor, or the building principal, and someone will assist you. Knowing your concerns allows us to be better at what we do. And we want everyone to feel comfortable as possible during this time. Quick highlights, Mr. Castellano, if I could just have 2 more seconds about school district happenings. This week I did put out a weekly newsletter with the help of Mr. Santilli and central office staff. We will continue to do that on Mondays for the community, for the Board of Education, and for our teachers and students. And highlighted in that are some of the things that we're proud of, particularly the Pledge of Allegiance that happens every day, and our social media posts that involve acknowledgements and announcements. They could be found on Facebook and Twitter and our website. And our latest today is that our 2017 softball team, they were state champions in 2017, and in 2020 they were voted the Atlantic City Press best high school team. So thank you to everybody who voted. We were on a mission to be champions. Yeah. We've also been in contact with middle school and high school principals and administration regarding end of the year activities, such as awards, the prom and graduation. And I know those things are on people's minds, and rightfully so. We are working on ideas, but we're also looking towards the governor's speech on May 15th to give us more clarity as to how things will pan out. So right now we're working on plans A, B, C, D, and E, okay? And Justin from the high school, the high schools will honor the class of 2020. That'll be tomorrow night. It will start at 8 p.m. 20 minutes of lights, and the high school stadium will be lit in honor of our class of 2020s. We all know that there is a curfew in effect, and we'll be capturing all that on video, and we will repost on our social media. So there's some of the great things that I'm proud of, and I thank everybody for not only their concerns, but their efforts in making us hashtag EHT proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio, as always, for an excellent report and the great job that you and all the staff are doing. Unfortunately, our student reps are not with us tonight. We miss them. I hope that they're tuning in and following along. These meetings, though, by nature are a bit streamlined from our normal meetings. Our next item of business is to move into finance and operations, and I'm going to ask if there are any administration updates for the board and public.
Yes, there are. Thank you, Mr. Castellano. At this time, I'd like to highlight where we are in the 2021 budget process. We have had several meetings presenting the 2021 budget to the board and to the community. These presentations can be found online under Board of Education and the submenu budget. The next steps in the process include the budget hearing, which is scheduled for next Tuesday, April 28th at 7 p.m. Once the budget is passed, the township clerk and the Atlantic County Division of Taxation certify the tax levy certification. And then the governor is set to review the treasurer's report for anticipated state revenue for the rest of fiscal year of 1920 on May 22nd. After that, we're looking for New Jersey state aid to be verified by August 25th. Regarding the finance and operations update during COVID crisis, the business office staff has been working from home for the first 2 weeks and has since transitioned into a hybrid schedule of working in the office and at home. We do have 2 new hires beginning May 1st who have already started transitioning. The food service department, as Dr. Gruccio highlighted, has been serving an average of 10,000 meals a week for the 3 distribution centers, as well as transportation making rounds into the community. The transportation department is still looking to hire drivers to support the increased need for full-day kindergarten, as well as bringing more runs in-house versus using contracted drivers. We encourage you to please apply online, tell your neighbors. And at this time, our drivers are at home. Mechanics and office staff are preparing our fleet for our return. The facilities department also supports the food service operation and has been working a modified schedule over the past month. This week, we have staff at home, and we joke about the calm before the storm. This time being taken off is to reflect on the upcoming tasks of reopening schools, deep summer cleaning, as well as organizing the movement of classroom and spaces to implement full-day kindergarten. And we cannot express how much we appreciate the hard work happening every day to keep the business of schools open. Regarding this agenda, just some highlights for you. Overall, this agenda has the routine action, but I'd like to highlight some donations that we've received during this closure. The Pellegrini family and C Canvas Company has donated face shields for our food service department. Chick-fil-A has donated 770 entree gift cards for our families. And the Community Food Bank, along with Cooper Levinson, through the Let Us Eat Please grant, has also provided food vouchers during our spring break closing. It was much appreciated for our residents. Regarding tuition and transportation contracts on this agenda, students still attending the schools and the jointures that are being approved will be modified based on actual school days open. On the agenda, you will also see year 4 of 5 of the Aspire grant funding for the Miller program for your review and approval. overall, we will be having another committee meeting on May 5th is our next scheduled meeting. And that's the update from finance. Any questions?
Mr.
I'm
President,
going
may I
to,
say something? This is Marita.
absolutely.
Okay, I want to let you know that I've received numerous calls from the community about the finances. I'm very disappointed we didn't have a meeting. I would like to have one sometime during this week. It would be irresponsible of me not to know what our finances are actually at with the schools being closed, and also if there's going to be any impact for next year's school as far as monies that we may be getting from the state. I know that the state and Egg Harbor Township have given leeway to people paying their taxes, and I would like to know if this is going to impact us receiving our funds. So I'd like my committee to meet sometime this week, if they can make it virtually, and just go over a few things before we have our vote next week. Thank you.
As the liaison administratively for the Finance Committee, I have updated the board what we do know thus far regarding the timeline for budget and the state aid. Within this week, I don't foresee the state providing any more guidance. We have been directed to continue with our budgets as planned. Whatever the state does decide will be a statewide impact, and if we do need to reconsider anything, we are aware that we may be discussing budget again in the summer. I'm not against having a meeting, but I don't foresee having any more knowledge just in this coming week.
Thank you, Ms. Anaya.
So first, I would just like to, in response to our report, I would also like to thank our donors very much, our community members and our businesses for helping us with those things. Very much appreciated all around. Secondly, discussion of the budget is a full board matter. Any matters that need to be discussed, we can discuss right now. Chandra is here to answer your questions, and we're here to do that tonight. We're here to hear from the public tonight, as well as next meeting at our budget hearing. Are there any other board members?
Yes, this is Mrs. Gilbert Floyd. I just wanted to say that I just wanted to echo what Mr. Castellano referenced to the donors. I just like to say that one of the donors from Chick-fil-A that was very integral in getting the donation to our community is actually a former student of Egg Harbor Township. So I just wanted to put that out there. Her name is Mrs. Hunter, and she is, I believe, the PR director at the Chick-fil-A store on Fire, I believe it's on Fire Road. But just wanted to say thank you. It's really nice to have former students to want to give back to the community. So I just wanted to give her just some recognition. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members, questions, comments on finance?
Yes, Barbara here. As far as the Aspire grant, Mrs. Anaya, is that affected because we're not in session, or will we still get the same amount?
So the update we've received from the state just on Monday or yesterday is basically for this year we're running right now. They're asking for innovation within the program, and our director has submitted to Mr. Santilli and myself her implementation that she can incorporate beginning sometime in May over the summer to do virtual innovation using Zoom or Chrome or Google or that kind of a platform to still provide innovative STEM related activities for students. So that's where they've modified it. Going into next year, we are allotted $500,000 a year for 5 years. So that doesn't change. It's just a matter of how we deliver the grant. This particular grant runs September through August. So this summer is still part of last year's monies. It'll be actually next year, starting in October program that you're actually approving on this agenda, and she is going with her budget as if we're open for the all of next year. Mm-hmm. But if we aren't, then it would again be modified to a virtual type of a setting.
Okay, I have another question, Mr. Castellano. Since this is the time to talk about the budget, Has any discussion been about perhaps taking the 4.5 cents of the increase to the public with finances the way they are in the public? Or are we still going with the budget the way it was? 4.5 cent increase to the taxpayers.
I'm
So
gonna,
right now it's it's, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was
So
just
right
gonna
now
ask Chandra,
Okay, we're
Chandra,
all
please.
working through this virtual stuff. Thank you, Mr. Castellano. Yes. So right now, as is, as of the last board meeting and what was approved by the county office is a budget going to cap, which is really about 2 cents of new money for 2020. So that is the current budget as it stands. If any decision would be made, it would be at this board level. It would not be something we would just change. So as of the last meeting that we've had and going into our budget hearing next week, as it stands right now, it is the budget that we have since approved and discussed.
Well, since we're saving money by not being in session in the buildings, is there, we really need to do something for the taxpayers because they're not going to be able to afford to live here. They already couldn't, and now there's a lot of people that aren't working. I just think that they need to be taken into consideration as far as formulating what we're going to do. And if we have money that we're saving, can that be put towards next year's budget?
So you made a couple of good points there. I'll just respond based on what I've been discussing with several board members, community members, and our staff. This year, because we still have to pay staff as if we were still in school based on the governor's executive order, as well as paying contractors who were with the understanding if we were open would have been paid anyway. Although I am going to be negotiating with contractors to hopefully have some savings, there really isn't going to be much savings outside of anticipated possibly utility savings running on day shift, not 2 shifts. If we did in fact have that sort of savings, it would be going towards the 21-22 budget, not necessarily the 21 budget that we're proposing now. Regarding impact to taxpayers, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, one of the
I was
things
following up with with the second part of your
I'm
question of
sorry.
impact to
I thought you were done.
taxpayers.
I thought you were done. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Just the second half, it was your question about impact to taxpayers was, it is very tough times, and we did speak to the board president and Dr. Ruccio and I have been speaking. We are very aware. We have the budget as it's presented. And basically we looked at, we can cut, in order to talk about the 4.5 cents, we would be cutting about over $2 million of our budget for the average $2,000 household to $48 really. So we looked at the impact to the household, although it is not minimal by any means. $50 is $50. The impact to the education of our students is much more significant of a loss. So at this point, we were moving forward with the budget as proposed, but definitely any questions anybody has.
You had said about still having to pay contractors. Would Insight be one of those contractors that we would still have to pay even if we're not using their manpower?
So Insight specifically being one of our biggest contracts ever since the executive order was passed, I have been on the phone with them daily. We are in current negotiations, and once we get to more justification for their request, I will be bringing something to the board. It may be next week, it may not be till next month, but they contractually were expecting money, but it is in the executive order. The whole purpose is to cover payroll costs and direct costs related to their overhead. So it's not anticipated to be the full contract that we would have normally spent with them, but we do still have some Insight subs working, and we do know they have some fixed overhead costs. So we're in the middle of going through some of that, but there will be some savings with Insight, but it's not the millions of dollars that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. But you'll have those figures for us before we vote on the budget next week on any savings and what you're anticipating is what I'm asking.
It's very hard to anticipate savings when I'm still actively negotiating with contractors. I will let you know where I am, where we are as a board next week before we vote on the budget. But it's not to say that, you want to not go to cap, or to say it's not a 4.5 cent increase, we're looking at $2.5 million. And again, in this year's budget, that would go towards the 21-22 budget, not necessarily the budget we're about to go into.
Miss,
Okay.
excuse me. I'm sorry. I had a quick question. You said $2.5 million, Miss Anaya?
$2.5 million is if you want taxpayers to have absolutely no change to their tax bill, as far as the school tax rate, meaning no impact at all. Your bill is exactly the same as it was year to year.
But that would be for what school year again? Just want to make sure I'm hearing correctly. For the 20.
The question was to cut 4.5 cents out of the 2021 budget you're about to vote on next week.
Okay.
So in order to cut that for next week, you would have to cut $2.5 million out of the 2021 budget,
so
which is going to be voted on.
yes. So that's why I wanted to say how that $2.5 million cut. Where would the cuts take place, and how would it impact students, staff, or what are we looking at?
I can speak to that. Dr. Griccio, looking at making a cut that drastic, where the expenses are, and that's in personnel and health benefits. So we would look to be most likely cutting staff. I explained in one of the budget presentations that the full day kindergarten process was involving condensing classes and becoming more efficient in grades 1, 2, and 3. And what that did was produce the need to move teachers from those classrooms into the proposed full day kindergarten. So this would be a drastic back to the drawing board and look at what those cuts could possibly be. But I will tell you right now, we're looking at personnel, and that we did share before.
And with that, so when you say as far as cutting personnel, then that brings me to one of, I think, our biggest programs that we're looking to implement, which is the full day kindergarten. Would it look like it would be cuts in that, not having it, or would it be cuts in,
Correct. We need those teachers that we were taking from grades 1, 2, and 3 to be placed in the kindergarten program. That was all part of our plan. And so we can get down to how many staff that we were going to advertise for, which was part in the budget process. Dr. Charlton had shared that piece. So to answer your question, they go hand in hand. So if the one is cut, then you're cutting staff.
But would it be more cutting the kindergarten program, or
Yes.
the program, but not those teachers will go back to
No.
no. Okay, they'll be cut.
I have some questions.
Sure, Mrs. Bird, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this all correctly. And please correct me if I'm wrong. So we have the executive order from the governor that is requiring us as a school district to continue to pay our employees what they would be making if we were going to the traditional brick and mortar school.
Actually, Christy, I'm going to jump in. It's actually a part of a law that was passed.
Okay.
And
So it's
the law
for that.
requires it.
What was it? What was the law number?
It is A3904.
839. Thank you. So we have a law that is requiring us to pay. And so we're not really getting savings there, except that we may be able to renegotiate some of our contracts. But at this time right now, it's as if we were in school still. Okay, so I understand that. Thank you. And should we not go to cap, we would be saving per household approximately, I think, was it a per $200,000 household? I'm not sure. About $50. However, if we do go to cap, then we would be able to retain employees and go have full day kindergarten. Did I hear that correctly? Okay. So if this budget does get approved, say next week, does that prohibit us from later, once we have actual statistics on the economic impact that this pandemic has had, are we able to then readjust our budget in a way that meets the needs of our community, should the community want us to do so? Because I and other board members, we all are feeling very concerned that our community members may be suffering through this time. They aren't working. We live in a community that relies on tourism. We don't have that right now. But I'm also thinking about the families that have to go back to work at some point and they need their children to be educated. And so the economic impact on them of having to pay $1,000 a month for a private, say, kindergarten would be better served than keeping it for their household and investing it into our community. That seems like that would trickle around the community a little bit better. But I could be wrong. But I guess my main question is, if we vote this budget, does that mean we cannot adjust things later? Thank you.
With changes in funding, they will let us make changes as needed.
Mr. Price, I have a question, please.
Sure, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, during some of the discussions we had at the meetings, when we talked about all these things, it was brought up, what would this cost us if we did not go to cap? Is there any changes in that? Somebody had brought up a figure of around $6 million at that point. So my question at this time is, what would the cost be if we don't go to cap?
To be specific, cost for which portion, Mr. Price? I'm not sure what you're asking.
The overall budget, there was discussions that we talked about, and it was discussed if we didn't go to cap, it could cost us revenue if we didn't go to cap in regards to state aid or something of that sort.
So if we don't go to cap, it hurts us in future years. That maybe that's what you're referring to. So basically, every levy year is based on the previous year. So it's a 2% increase on a previous year's budget. So is that what you mean, future potential loss?
Yes. What would be the potential loss if, in the event that we don't go to cap?
So if our levy is held flat going into next year, you've lost already $1.5 million from this point forward in perpetuity. That base will then not be increased by 2% as well. So depends on, if the impact goes on forever, basically, by not increasing the levy this year.
So essentially, we would just be continuing a problem then, as far as taxes are concerned. If we
Correct.
didn't go to cap.
That's correct.
Okay, it would just be continuing the situation we're in. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Barbara
Are
here.
there any other
Yes.
board members?
I just want to say that it would be very irresponsible if we don't take the taxpayers into consideration when looking at this budget and any funding differences or whatever way it falls as far as savings or funding. We still need to consider our taxpayers. That's all I have to say.
I certainly agree. We need to take everything into consideration. One other amount in addition, Chandra, is by not having full day kindergarten, we immediately forego any grant money that we had hoped to apply for preschool, which we had estimated could easily top $1 million. So that's an additional
correct.
factor. An additional
That's correct.
factor. Are there other board members with questions or comments on finance and operations?
Yes, Mr.
Other board
Castellano.
members?
Marita, please. Chandra?
Yes, Mrs. Sullivan. I was waiting for you to finish.
I
Go
don't know
ahead.
how much of a delay I'm on. Let me ask you this. If, in fact, the state does not come through with the financing that we're expecting, then we can go back after we've approved this budget. We can go back in, change the budget, and the taxpayers' amount will go down if in fact we do not get what we're supposed to.
I cannot speak on what will happen with which portion of the budget. If we lose any state funding, the board is approving a budget in its totality. If the total changes, we are then able to reopen our budget and reconsider changes to the budget. Whether that's increase of tax levy or remaining it the same, if that's part is not based on tax on the state aid. It's basically once state aid changes, you reopen your budget and have discussions with your board about how to modify it.
So in fact, we could have to increase our tax levy quite a bit then. If we're going to bring the new programs in, we may really be hitting the constituents.
So the term called, going to cap is because tax levy is capped at 2%. So even if the state were to cut aid in August, we would still, if we are submitting a budget going to cap, that is the cap amount of a levy increase. That is the total paid, a total allowed to be increased. So if we lose state funding, we can't ask taxpayers for more than cap. It's cap. That's why there's a tax levy cap.
Okay, thank you.
If that makes sense.
Makes sense.
This is Mrs. Floyd. I just, Tamika Gilbert-Floyd, I just wanted to say that, and I'm speaking for myself, and I'm sure some people probably feel the same way as well. The stakeholders in the township are at the forefront in consideration in all decisions that I think are made by the board and board members. So I just don't want anyone in the public to leave away, go away thinking that the taxpayers aren't considered, as well as the students, staff. It's a holistic view that we take when we, make decisions. And this, having the pandemic come up and surprise all of us, I think has put a shock to everyone's system. But at the same time, we all know that we have to consider all the stakeholders that are going to be affected by the decisions that we make. And unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't always, if you make a decision, there are going to be some people who are going to be, happy with it and some that aren't. But all the stakeholders within the township are considered, from the taxpayer to the student. So I just wanted to say that.
Are there any other board members with questions or comments on finance and operations, please? Okay, seeing and hearing none, we're going to move to curriculum, and I'm going to ask if administration has any updates in the area of curriculum.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. I'm going to turn to Mr. Santilli, we've been working together overseeing curriculum during this time.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio, and it's good to see everybody virtually. Just to give everyone an update, basically the work we've been doing behind the scenes since our closure, it has been phased in regards to curriculum and instruction. Some of the things you've already heard about earlier tonight, but I'll recap briefly. For instance, we've been pushing out a lot of professional development. We've called it Lunch and Learn over the past few weeks prior to spring break. And we had a great outpouring from our staff in order to be able to meet their needs, to make them more comfortable with transitioning to this virtual environment to meet the needs of our students. Additionally, we've provided some updates to our parents as well. Again, to provide them resources. We have a series of playlists and YouTube videos to be able to support parents at home, everything from being able to create a Infinite Campus parent portal account to how to really navigate Google Classroom or even a Google Meet for a live session if needed. Some of the things we've also been continuing to push out, and for us, it's a matter of trying to really not just maximize time, but also maximize the time on task for our students without overwhelming. We do still try to focus on our mission in EHT, which is embrace, engage, educate. And right now for all of us, I think embrace is that first piece. So we do have a schedule for all the different grade levels. We have had some recent revisions to that schedule since spring break, and is broken down through pre-K to 3, 4 and 5, grades 6 through 8, and then of course high school. What we typically do right now is we have gotten a lot of great feedback in regards to taking that schedule on a daily basis, and we use our social media accounts, of course, to push that out first thing in the morning. It starts with the Pledge of Allegiance. We've had a great outpouring from our community and our own staff and even students in regards to the recordings that we've been able to showcase, and then followed by that would be the actual schedule for the day, just to really make sure we have some support for our parents. We know that this is a big change, not just for our staff, but also for everyone at home. So we are leading with that in mind, with embrace and that social emotional aspect. We also really did produce, prior to spring break, an update in regards to grading to make sure that we were communicating our expectations to our staff. The first 10 days of the closure, if you recall, there was a lot of unknowns. So we started this, journey with a lot of what I would refer to in the elementary grades with paper packets, and really just trying to monitor and provide supports at home in the sense of more supplemental instruction or work. And now we've transitioned into more time on task with instruction and true learning in that virtual environment. Coupled with that, there's going to be an additional grading memo, which is going to be out this week for our parents. And then in addition to that, we're going to continue to follow up, as Dr. Gruccio mentioned earlier, with a lot of those frequently asked questions in regards to where we go from here with a lot of our end of the year events, which I know everyone is anxious to see what the future is going to hold as we are as well. So I think that would kind of give everyone a brief overview of what we've been working on behind the scenes. And again, just to reiterate what we discussed earlier, if anyone has any questions, please make sure that you feel free to reach out to us, from that parent lens at home. Reach out to your building principals, reach out to your teachers. We're here for you during this time.
Thank you, Mr. Santilli, and may I say you're looking very dapper this evening. And at this time, I'm going to ask if any board members have questions or comments in the curriculum area. Hearing none, we will now move to personnel. And again, I'll ask for administration updates in the personnel area.
Mr. Castellano, I'm going to turn the screen over to Dr. Charlton, our Director of Human Resources, who will give you an update with personnel.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio, and thank you, Mr. Castellano. The HR department, much like the business department, we started remotely, and essential staff are now transitioning back into the office simply because there's personnel file information that we need to complete the day-to-day needs of the district staff that we simply can't access online. But Chandra and I have been working very closely together to make sure our two staffs are very staggered, and we're well exceeding any federal and state guidelines with distancing, even with our essential staff. But things are going on in terms of leave of absence adjustments, student loan servicing where they need employment verifications, mortgage applications, a lot of day-to-day HR office work that really we can't do remotely. But I did want to update the board on two topics briefly. The first one is this month, the board agenda contains non-renewals. And with those non-renewals by statute, we have to have contracts go out to staff by May 15th. So the plan is to make a really hard push at the end of April and get those out in the mail by Friday, May 1st. So even if there's post office delays, that the contracts will be in compliance with statute in terms of employees getting them on May 15th. The other topic was summative evaluations, sometimes referred to as overall evaluations for staff. I was on a call with the New Jersey Department of Ed today with Dr. Linda Eno from NJDOE, and she was clarifying some of the information we've been getting on broadcast memos and got some good clarification on things that really affect our certified staff and their evaluations for the year. She said, in quote, that the philosophy of the NJDOE is to do no harm. And I believe that's our philosophy of the district as well. I'll be communicating this information to our district staff via email tomorrow, but I just wanted to give you a couple of quick highlights. The first is that for tenured staff in good standing, and what good standing means is that last year they either received a highly effective or effective rating, they will not have to go through the summative evaluation process. Okay, so they will basically not need that type of evaluation, that overall evaluation, because they were an effective or higher educator last year. That's kind of what they're considered this year. That includes any tenured staff that were on leaves as well this year. Non-tenured and provisionally certified staff, they will need summative evaluations. Okay, those evaluations will be done and completed by 2 observations that they would have had done by March 18th when we went into the COVID closure, and then a summative evaluation, which will happen by phone or video conference with their supervisor or principal. So those staff members, and we have all of them identified and communicated to the principals and supervisors, those that will need those summative scores, because they all do get sent to the state. And that is important in terms of their employment with the state, recognizing that they are moving on satisfactorily to the next year. The main thing in terms of student achievement is that regardless of the category of certified staff, no measures of student achievement will apply to anyone's evaluation in this year. So for example, an SGO, which is based on student achievement, that will not play into any certified employees' evaluation for this year. So that's all been canceled along with the state testing. That all part has been waived. So that is my report. Thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Charlton. Board members, any board members, questions or comments in the personnel area?
I just have a question real quickly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Charlton, can you just explain for the non-tenured teachers, when you said they are required to have a summative, will it be an observation of their virtual teaching or just a communication between a supervisor?
Good question. So it would have to be their minimum 2 observations that they had live in person before March 18th. Those 2 observation scores will count together, divided by 2 as the summative score, and then a summative conference would take place. There can't be, the state is saying that there are going to be no observations of people virtually teaching. So if for whatever reason, like a non-tenured teacher joined in mid-year and only had 1, the second observation would be a portfolio assessment where a teacher would show his or her supervisor, here's some of the things I've done, in terms of artifacts, things I've done with the class. And then the evaluation would take place in terms of a portfolio assessment. But no observations of teachers teaching remotely will count towards Achieve New Jersey. But at the same time, Dr. Eno did mention, again, with the do no harm philosophy, this isn't a reason for teachers to have to run into buildings in their classrooms to get artifacts to prove to their supervisors that they did this. Again, everybody's kind of taken at their word because of the situation.
Any other board members, questions or comments in the personnel area?
This is Mrs. Floyd. I have a question, but it's more so going back to curriculum and finance. Would you like me to wait? We can move on and I could ask later. It was more of a comment / question.
Up to you. It's your choice.
I just had it. So going back to curriculum and finance, it's kind of like a hybrid question, I guess. The question was a reference to the African American history class for seniors, and I guess it kind of folds into doing different things for seniors as well. I know that's a class for seniors, and they had a trip, I guess, planned for the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. And I know there was a donation made to that for that particular trip, and I just didn't know if that particular the funding, was it given directly for that trip, or is it more so something that's deposited into a general activities account and put toward that, or was it directly to the African American history class for seniors?
So I can speak to the field trip itself, and I'd have to do more research. I'd have to do some more research, or maybe Miss Anaya knows about the funding offhand. But
Okay.
ultimately, can tell you that, of course, with the closure, we're following along with, as you know, the
Absolutely.
guidelines from the state. In addition, we have to also, because of that trip, we've been monitoring our field trips very closely. Matter of fact, the principals prior to break and supervisor had gone through our list of previously approved board field trips. And I recall that there were two trips to Washington, D.C., that being one of them for the end of May. At the current time, those trips have been, postponed or canceled, depending upon what we can do for in the future. We certainly are taking all of those things into consideration in regards to being able to provide that experience to the students moving forward. But at the current time, of course, we're not able to not just travel, but we have to also abide in that particular situation with other states that we might be traveling to in regards to restrictions they may have, even if restrictions are lifted here in Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Santilli. Regarding the funding, unlike budget funding that expires in June, when monies are donated or a grant is received for a specific purpose, it does stay with that purpose year over year. So if we're not able to make that trip this year, it could go next year. If it was for this particular group of seniors that will be graduates into next year and they'll actually be in college, if it was so specific for that, we will then give those funds to organize that trip specific to those seniors. But it is not like a budget in June that just expires.
And I just want to thank you for that. And I guess because when I mentioned the donations in reference to from Chick-fil-A from Alexis Hunter, who was a former student, I thought about Mr. Bell, who's a former EHT student too, and just commend him for the work that he's doing with that history class. And that's kind of near and dear to my heart, just because I remember when I was in high school, we signed a petition to get an African American history class. So I'm just glad to see that it's there and part of the curriculum. So just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Bell. Thank you.
I actually have a curriculum question too. Mrs. Floyd's comment sparked a question for me, if you don't mind, Mr. President.
Sure.
Thank you. As far as our seniors or students taking AP classes, how is it working with not having standardized testing? How are we making sure? I just don't know how it works. So if you could explain to me how we're making sure our students who are in those courses will get the credits that they've earned.
Students in those courses are taking the virtual classes with their teachers as well and doing as much as work possible. They will be testing. They'll have online testing, so they will take their test. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions or comments in the personnel area? Hearing none, we're going to move to policy, and I'll again ask administration for updates.
Okay, Mr. Castellano, I'm going to turn the screen over to, once again, Mr. Santilli, who is the administrative liaison for our policy committee.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio. Basically, we do not have a report, but I want to provide an update for the board under new business 9.1. I would just like to bring your attention to that particular update, suspension of policies under emergency circumstances. As you can see there, there's a resolution that has been provided for the board to review. And ultimately what it comes down to is obviously that is in place due to our current circumstances due to the COVID-19 closure.
Okay, thank you. Do we have board member questions or comments?
This is Mrs. Floyd. I had I guess a quick question. I can definitely reach out to Mrs. Santilli later, but I just wanted to maybe kind of quickly discuss. I know Mrs. Sullivan mentioned about having committee meeting for finance. Just thinking in reference to policy, I know it's not in effect at this point, but I wanted to know if I was thinking that maybe we could set up some type of meeting just to kind of go over some items and just to kind of see where we're going, and then maybe review some things that we had in the queue as far as with policies. And if the other members felt that need, those who were in the policy committee. Of course, it will be virtual.
I guess my comment or my thought would be that we would anticipate sticking with our scheduled committee meeting night, which which are scheduled coming up very soon, the first week in May, if I'm correct.
That's correct. I know with finance and ops, we plan on, I haven't talked to the full committee yet, but the plan was to schedule it virtually and have our own meeting room for that particular night. And I'm assuming the other committees would work the same way through this Google Meets separately.
Is that acceptable, policy members?
It's
And
fine
Mrs.
with
Floyd?
me. Mr. Castellano, it's fine with me, Marita.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, very, very good. So moving on from policy, now we come to public comment. Chandra, maybe you'll walk us through the mechanics of how public comment will work. I'll just talk to substances the same as always, where we're going to limit our comment to 3 minutes. The board cannot talk about personnel or litigation, and it's often the case that a complex question, we may need to get back to you with a more detailed response. So with that, I'll let Chandra explain the mechanics of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. So as you see on the screen, that is the telephone number to call in for public comment. There is about a 30-second delay for the public to see this, so we'll just hold off. When I get the first call, it's being forwarded to me, which I have right now. I'm going to ask for a name and address, and then we'll put them on. Good evening, name and address, please. Go ahead with your public comment.
Okay, I just have one comment, 2 questions. First is just a comment. So just so the public understands the reason that you guys are staying tax neutral and it having an impact on the 2022 budget by $4 million is because you're compounding the impact of tax raises on the public. To me, that's not being a good custodian of finances as a board when you're setting the expectation of a reliance on capping the public year over year and then being concerned about a lack of funds 2 years away. To me, this is reckless considering we are in the throes of 20% unemployment, significant amount of taxpayers being stressed in bankruptcy. So my 2 questions, one, why isn't there more savings? The maintenance and operating budget is $12 million a year. Transportation budget is $8 million a year. So that's $20 million a year that we are no longer spending a good portion of. So it's about $2 million a month. You guys have been down for about 2 months now. We're probably looking at another month and a half outage. So just to put that into context, $2 million a month, 3-month outage, that could pay for 4 years of full-day kindergarten without tax raise. So I'm kind of concerned why that hasn't been, why we haven't gone into more detail about what the savings are. The second question is just kind of a general question. Does it make sense to anyone to take on full-day kindergarten when we can't even gateway our kids presently back to school? It's highly likely COVID will still be with us come September. Now you want to take up to 500 kids full-time with potential PPE quarantine limitations and restrictions. This doesn't make any sense to me at all. Thanks.
Thank you. So I will take some of that as it relates to finance and operations. The reference to the facilities and maintenance budget, as well as the transportation budget, does include salaries. I'll start with facilities and maintenance and grounds. That operation continues. We still are actively doing work orders, paying personnel, as well as moving forward with projects that were budgeted. That don't anticipate savings there outside of, like I said, some utilities savings, as we are running one shift instead of two. Regarding transportation, again, we are still paying for our drivers and our mechanics, still getting inspections from DMV. We do anticipate some savings with wear and tear on buses, as well as with wear and tear on our buses, as well as gas. So there's going to be some savings. We can do the best we can with anticipation. We still at this point don't know if we're going to be out the rest of the year or just until May 15th. So as we actually can do hindsight reflection on what the savings will be, but as far as anticipated, it'd be very hard to quantify.
Okay, thank you for
I
your
do have
comment.
another public comment coming out. They just hung up. So as the next one comes in, we'll do the same process. Name and address, please.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Sure. My name is Stephanie Poveromo, 108 Amber Court in Carver Township.
Go ahead with your comment.
May I continue? Thank you. My concern is I'm listening to the budget. I understand about the maintenance issues, the transportation issues, the field issues, everything I've been hearing tonight. What about the issues about graduation for the students, the seniors who went through 12 years of school and need to be recognized? I mean, it's April. It's April. So what's going to happen by June? They cut me off.
I'm still here. Hello. We're still here with listening to your comment. You still have a few minutes. Is that the end of your comment?
Pardon my upsetness.
That's okay. Does that conclude your public comment?
Yeah, I just want to know what's going on with the seniors this year.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I have another one coming in.
Dr. Gruccio, would you like to address that one real quickly, or?
Sure, Mr. Castellano. I'll just repeat what I said in the beginning of the meeting, where we have been working with administration of the high school and the middle school, discussing the end of the year events, and graduation being one of them. I know the high school administration met today and will meet throughout the week, talking about ideas. They put a survey out to the seniors today to ask the seniors what they would like, a virtual graduation ceremony to hold off in the summer, or some other ideas. So we're collecting ideas. And then again, we were waiting for that May 15th announcement from the governor to see what the direction is. And there's plans A, B, C, and D, because will schools be open? Will schools be closed? If they are closed, do we go to virtual, and when? If they're open, are there restrictions with seating, just as the Air Force Academy did? They spaced the students out. So we have our thinking caps on. We are in the process of planning. We have not forgotten the seniors. The class of 2020 will be honored starting tomorrow night and every night with the lighting of the stadium at the high school. So, hopefully that answers the questions and relieves some anxiety. And I encourage you to reach out to the high school principal or myself if you have any other further concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gruccio. We are very concerned about our seniors, our eighth graders, and all our students. And so we do have plans in place, and we will be doing the best we can and reacting to the guidance that comes down as soon as it's available. So I thank you for that comment, and we share those concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Castellano. We do have somebody else in queue. Hello, name and address, please.
Herman Lee, 307 Island Lane.
Go ahead with your public comment.
Yes, good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. First of all, I'm not concerned about everything that's going right or going wrong, but what I can tell you, what is working for my child at this time is Miss Mustachio, Miss Nifa, and Miss Delcher. Your teachers are doing very well. So I know everybody's going to tell you where everything's going wrong. I'm here to tell you what's going right. At this present moment in time, we have had a lot of adversities to doing everything as far as trying to educate our children. They're missing the social action in between each other. However, I think they've learned a valuable lesson that, personal touch and personal conversation is a good thing, not just texting and calling and everything else, doing Zoom, doing Skype. But what's working well for you guys, I can tell you, is the teachers, they do care. Ms. Delcher has sent at least 2 cards to my daughter. Just say, hey, check in, how are you doing? What's going on? Look forward to seeing you tomorrow in the virtual school. So I think this is a new day, a new way of learning, and we just have to adapt to what the times are bringing to us at this time. And that's all I have to say.
I'd like to thank you for your positive comments, and we like to hear not only what's not working so we can fix it, but we really appreciate to hear what is working. And we too are proud of our teachers serving our students, and while we love our students and we're proud, all of us, to be one happy family. This is tough for everyone, as we know, in our own personal homes, but when it comes to the extension to school, to just hear that you're appreciative and things are working out for you and your family, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much for the comment. Thank you.
I have another one. Name and address, please.
It's Kathy Wasson.
Is somebody else listening? Oh, you have it in the background. Go ahead, Mrs. Wasson.
Yeah.
Maybe if you can mute behind you.
You want me to do what?
Mute the audio behind you so we can hear you clearly.
Sure. Let me just see if I know how to do that.
There you go. You sound good. Go ahead with your comment.
Okay. Okay. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, you are on the virtual live. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Kathy Wasson. First of all, I want to say this is quite an experience. And wait a minute. I can't hear what Miss Anaya is saying.
You're on the virtual meeting. Nobody is speaking. Just you.
Okay. All right. So first I want to, I'm going to say this again. This sounds like our classes every day. Okay. Okay. All right.
There's a 30-second delay. If you're watching, if that's what's happening, you have to mute behind you and then go ahead and make public comment.
Okay. Sorry about all of that. I want to speak to several things, but I'm going to try to make this short. One of the areas that I am concerned about and quite aware of is everybody's situation with the coronavirus and what it's done to our economy. I don't think we are the only ones that are worried about our residents, and I worry about the parents of my children. But I know one thing. I know that Egg Harbor Township residents value education. And I know that we have struggled with trying to structure a full day kindergarten. And we have worked very hard with meetings with the public, strategic planning meetings, having discussions, then re-meeting again to go over what we've learned in the strategic planning meetings to come up with a real solid plan for full day kindergarten. So I am asking the board members to please vote in favor of this budget next week, because it's important for us. And our number one goal is education. We need to educate our children. And I think the parents understand that, and the parents are for full day kindergarten. Second, I want to thank the administrators for being so helpful to the teachers and the staff. This has been very difficult. Some days you're almost on the verge of crying because you see your children, but you miss them. All of a sudden you get clicked off, they bounce off, they come back in. I absolutely take my hat off to the parents because they are persevering. They're getting their children into these meetings. They're communicating with teachers. This has been a joint effort. I think the negative of coronavirus, I can flip it to a positive, that it has made such a connection between teachers and parents and teachers and children. So there's a lot of positive things that have come out of this crisis. So as I'm going to hang up now, but I just want to say that your staff is in there. We're working hard. We're trying to provide the best education we can. Please stand firm and vote for this budget next week so that we can add to our educational foundation with full day kindergarten and with the grant from the state, full day preschool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Mrs. Wazen, for your comment. And I did allow the time to go over because of the technical difficulties encountered at the beginning, which were at least a minute's worth of technical difficulties. So just for everyone going forward. But thank you very much for your comment and all that you do.
We are still continuing to receive calls, so we'll hold just for a little bit. And here's one now. Repeat, name and address, please.
Lauren Schlam, 117 Ford Lane.
And go ahead with your public comment, please.
First, I want to say thank you to everybody for doing such an amazing job getting the online education set so fast over a weekend. I think, so highly of our teachers for being able to get everything together in such a timely manner. I do want to thank you also for continuing doing the meals for families in need, which I think was absolutely wonderful as well. I do have one concern. I will have a positive and then a concern. My daughter is a senior at the high school, and like the gentleman earlier said, he has nothing but positivity to say about our teachers there. My daughter has done every single day. She logs on to check in with her teachers. She has Mrs. Belcher also, who has done cards to our home to check in on our family. Just very positive about them. My son is in middle school. He gets his work, but every day when he goes to log in, there's not always a teacher there to check in with him. I didn't know if that was something that was made like a mandatory thing at that level, because at the high school level, they seem to be making it a mandatory thing. At the middle school level, it's like, here's your work. You can check in if you need help. I didn't know if there's a way to make it a mandatory thing. I think some kids aren't logging on to talk to the teachers or to get their work because it's not made mandatory. That was really my only negative comment, but again, I want to thank everybody for everything they're doing, and look forward to hear what the plan is for our seniors, because I do have a graduate this year, so that is a pretty big deal for our family. But thank you guys for everything you've been doing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. And as far as the academic piece, if someone would like to, Dr. Gruccio, respond or up at this point.
Sure. What we will do is Mr. Santilli or I will reach out to Mr. Shalom tomorrow and address her concerns. And Mr. Santilli, do you have any comments on this?
No, we will certainly reach out. However, more specifically, just to address the schedule at the middle school level, the live sessions are just that. Teachers certainly should be conducting live and or pre-recorded sessions in addition to the other timeframes that we have for small group instruction and virtual help. All those times are not necessarily suggestions. They are there to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students and moving forward with not just providing supplemental support, but really true instruction to continue learning during this time. So we will certainly reach out, but in conjunction, we'll also be reaching out to the supervisors and also building principals to make sure that everyone is clear in regards to the middle school schedule.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the comment. I do think, again, we're doing a fantastic job with our virtual learning, but we are learning as we go. So there's always room for improvement. So we appreciate the comment, and we'll move on to our next call.
Thank you. We do have another caller. Name and address, please.
Sonia Cruz, 207 Egan Avenue, DHT.
Go ahead with your public comment.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. My comment is, again, about the seniors, and I know that we are all, putting their, the opportunity for them to have their graduations as a priority, and I know you guys are working hard. I've reached out and also said that Project Graduation is willing to help out in any form that we could help out. My question is, this is the time that our students are writing scholarship letters and are able to get additional funding. So I was hoping that there is still communication with guidance and the scholarship funders, and that the students are still able to have the opportunity to apply for funding, because we know EHT rocks and it gets lots of money, and I don't want this to be a problem as we move forward.
Is that the end of your public comment? We will.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mrs. Cruz. Dr. Gruccio, I can assure you that Mrs. Elko and Ms. Connor have had discussion about the scholarship process, and I just happened to see an email go back and forth yesterday where they are working on that. So I know they'll be communicating opportunities to our students for application, and they will be processing the scholarship applications that are in. And again, part of our planning process is that senior award night. So once we have more direction as to if we're in or out, we will look to do some sort of award ceremony. It could be virtual or it could be something spread out based on the guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonia, for your comment, and Dr. Gruccio for that response. And we'll move to our next, and that's a very, very important topic, by the way, among many others. And so we'll move to our next call.
Thank you. Public comment, name and address, please.
Gina Hannon, 5 Winterberry Road.
Go ahead with your public comment.
I understand the pandemic and everyone rushed and we're trying to learn virtual learning. My problem is to
are wonderful. They are there for all the students. But the fourth and fifth, or especially the fifth where my daughter's at, they're not getting daily instructional teachings of the subjects during the live interview. It's just to see if they have help. So I want to know if that was going to change. One teacher does it, another teacher doesn't. So I love the teachers, but it's just frustrating. I work, I'm a nurse, my husband works. We try to get the kids on and they're just not learning, and I just want to know if that was going to change in the future. If everyone will have a standard schedule.
Thank you. Is that the end of your public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Going to have Mr. Santilli chime in on that. And again, we would be willing to have a discussion over the phone tomorrow if need be.
Yes, we'll reach out tomorrow so I can be provided some more details. I want to make sure that it was a little broken up in regards to the public comment, unfortunately. So I wanted to make sure that we can discuss a little bit more at length the needs that you're talking about, so we can make sure that we get things situated. There is schedules for all the grade levels, P to 3, 4 and 5, 6 through 8, and high school. So we'll make sure that we reach out so we can clarify a little further.
So I want to thank you for your comment. I want to thank you for being a nurse. We appreciate you very much for that. And our administration will be in touch with you. And like I said, in response to the last comment, there's always room for improvement in our virtual learning process, and we will continue to do our best with that. But thank you very much for your comment, and we will be in touch with you.
I have another caller. Name and address, please.
Dr. Natanji Chestnut Lee, 307 Island Lane, Harbor Acres, DHG.
Go ahead with your public comment.
Yes, I would just like the board to know that I want to take the opportunity to commend the teachers at the high school. My daughter has actively been learning since COVID-19. Her teachers, none of her teachers have missed a beat. They have, actually sat in some of her lessons to ensure that learning was going on. And I can say that it definitely is. Her teachers have been very creative, from using, white poster boards to white favorite paper, putting it on their closet doors or their walls, instructing their students. They're very interactive, with their Google Meet sessions, their Zoom sessions, as well as instant messaging the kids throughout their lessons and reminding them of their assignments. So I do want Ms. Connor to know that she is doing a fantastic job with her high school instructors, because my daughter is still learning. And like I said earlier, they have not missed a beat. So hopefully once the budget, is passed, our parents or some of our community members, if funding does have to be cut in particular, areas such as teaching, with staff members, that they actually stand up and speak out on that, because our teachers are doing a fantastic job. And as parents, I'm sure some of them are really stressed out right now, and they understand how difficult it is to be an educator with 20 plus students in a classroom, and they're only dealing with, their children. So once again, kudos to the staff members at EHT High School, as well as the guidance department. Keep up the fantastic work. And that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Thank you.
We thank you very much for that comment. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Chestnut. We appreciate your feedback. And again, it fortifies what we do. And, we know our teachers work hard, and our students are working hard, and our parents as well. So thank you for the positive.
We haven't had a call since Dr. Chestnut spoke. So if you want to put the phone number up again on the stream, and we will be on hold for a complete minute to make sure there's nobody else for public comment. Thank you. seems to be the longest minute ever. We have another 20 seconds or so waiting for additional public comment because there is a 30-second delay for the live feed. If no other calls come in, we'll be closing public comment. Mr. President, your meeting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks to everyone who did call in, and thanks to everyone who is viewing at home. At this point, I'll ask for comments from board members, please, on any topic that you wish.
Mr. Castellano, I would like to read in these emails that I've received from residents, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, on March 16th, I received an email to my Egg Harbor Township email. The resident's name is Leona Conkle, and she wrote, I want to express my strongest support for full-day kindergarten. You already know many of the reasons that full-day kindergarten will be beneficial. These include a less rushed curriculum, a more enjoyable day, which will help kindergartners like school, more time to learn, fewer students needing special education just to get to their grade level, a better experience for students who already perform at or above grade level. Some argue about taxes. All-day kindergarten will free up non-working parents of kindergartners to work without paying for additional childcare. It will also alleviate financial stress on those working parents who must pay for full-day kindergarten childcare. Both of these will increase the tax base. We already have great schools, but full-day kindergarten will make EHT an even more attractive place to live. I believe that we should continue to move forward with full-day kindergarten, not just because of the recent coronavirus events and school closures, but because of them. If students are going to be learning at home for extended periods of times of crisis, that in-class time is all the more precious. Our youngest students need more time with teachers whenever possible to reinforce these basic but vital skills that they are learning and to keep them from regressing when not in class. I have attended some of your school board meetings, but I will not be attending the next few, even if they are open to the public. I am a strong believer in social distancing at this time out of an abundance of caution. Please count this letter as me stepping up to the podium once again to reiterate my support. Sincerely, Leona Conkle. The second email I received on March 17th, and it was from Hillary Grote, Cottage Road, EHT. Good afternoon, Mrs. Bird. I'm writing today to share my support of full-day kindergarten. I believe that full-day kindergarten would immensely benefit the students of Egg Harbor Township. After attending several board meetings this year and seeing the presentations by the district, it is clear that while our kids are receiving a quality education and our teachers and admins are working hard, there is more we can do, and that starts with creating a strong education foundation for our children. Kindergarten is the foundation of our kids' needs. Additional half-day kindergarten does not serve our district well. It does not serve full-time working parents. It does not serve low-income families, and it does not serve our teachers or students well. I look forward to being able to say proudly that EHT has full-day kindergarten. You know what? I apologize. That was from Julie Hunter, Winsep Drive. I have it on the same printout. I looked too far down. And the last email that I have, oh no, I have two more. Sorry, March 10th. This is from Hillary Grote, 12 Cottage Road. I am unable to attend board meeting tonight, but wanted to inform you that I support the full-day kindergarten program for EHT. I live in EHT and had a son who went through the half day and really feel he would have benefited from the full day in so many ways. 3 hours is not enough time to spend with kindergartners, and I think it prepares them I think it doesn't prepare them for first grade. I have a 2-year-old and would like to see her benefit from full-day kindergarten. Thank you for your consideration. And the last one, sorry. Good thing I don't have 3 minutes. March 10th, this was sent from, and I apologize if I mispronounced the name, Nishtha Kohli, and she is an Egg Harbor Township resident. Good afternoon, Mrs. Bird. My name is Nishtha Coley, and I'm a resident of Egg Harbor Township. My home address is 45 Bartlett Boulevard. I am writing to you to express my strong support for the full-day kindergarten program at EHT schools. I have 2 kids, a 2nd grader and a 5-year-old, who will be entering kindergarten fall 2020. I am hopeful that the board will vote yes on the proposed full-day program, as my family will be one of those who will be impacted by this decision directly. There are several reasons why I support the program, but here are a few most important ones. Number 1, half-day kindergarten is not sufficient to cover curriculum to make kids ready for 1st grade. Number 2, social developmental goals will be better achieved with a full-day program. Number 3, I currently work full-time and send my younger daughter to preschool, for which I pay $800 a month. For kindergarten, I can expect tuition at a private school to be upwards of $1,000. This is unaffordable for my family, even with 2 incomes. Number 4, no private school can match the standards, resources, opportunities of a public school system. The children stand to gain not just academically, but holistically by being exposed to specials like music, art, library, etc., etc. Please don't hesitate from using my name or comments in a public setting to demonstrate community support for the full-day kindergarten program. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Nishtha.
Thank you, Mrs. Bird. Any other board members, comments, questions?
It's Lou Delbark. I just want to make a general comment. Certainly appreciative of the IT department and all those involved in making it possible for us to have this virtual meeting tonight and our future meetings I'm sure we're going to have over the next few weeks. I think they did an outstanding job. I know it's difficult, and I think Chandra and Kevin and everybody involved should be appreciated and thanked. A special thank you, of course, to Dr. Gruccio and her outstanding team, and especially to the teachers. Wow, they have done such a great job. It's great to hear all these nice compliments. And you know who I think needs to be thanked? The boys and girls and their parents, because they certainly have done a lot during this entire time. And I think it's very trying. I'm trying to teach a class at this time also, and all that's at the Stockton college level, and it's not easy. And I found myself busy every day doing work with individual students and trying to keep up to date with them, because I have a few that I hope to graduate in a couple of weeks, even though the actual ceremony won't be till the fall. So I understand a little bit about what the teachers are going through, and I think it's so EHT of them to be doing such an outstanding job. And I'm always so proud of our teachers, our paras, and their entire staff. So the parents and the boys and girls deserve a big pat on the back. And I know we're going to continue doing what we have to do, but I just had to get my 2 cents in and thank everybody and thank our fellow board members for being together tonight. And hopefully we have a good meeting next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delbarca. Any other board members, please?
This is Mr. Price. I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
Okay. I would just like to thank everybody as well. I mean, this is quite a learning process that we're going through tonight. Starting to get the hang of it now. And it's great to see everybody. I appreciate too the input from the phone calls, and looking forward to the meeting next week. Hopefully we have a nice meeting and everything goes well with the technology. So that's my comments for this evening. Good night and stay safe, everybody, and stay well. Thank you.
Any other board members, comments, questions?
As Ms. Floyd, I just had a comment as well. I just want to say, when I heard, the many calls that we did get, some with concerns and questions, which are valid concerns and questions. I think what stood out to me the most was the many comments about the staff members and just how the township, Egg Harbor Township, just kind of rallied together and came together and did what we needed to do to kind of get through this pandemic that we are experiencing, and not just as a country or a county, but just as a whole the world. And Mrs. Wisen made a statement. She said, even though this is a pandemic, she said, there's something positive that came out of it, and she said how the relationship between teachers and parents And I think I'm just hoping that this situation, we come out of it more empathetic. And I feel like we all had opportunity, whether it's parents or teachers, to walk in each other's shoes and to know what it feels like, to be, to take on the challenges someone else may have to take on, whether it's teaching, whether it's, trying to teach and be a parent at the same time. I know for myself, it's not easy because I'm concerned about my school building, my students at my school, and my own children. And I definitely want to give a shout out to my children's teachers. We got a postcard from my daughter's teacher. We get phone calls. If there's an assignment that wasn't turned in, I get an email, or they pick the phone up and call me and let me know, and they've been in communication. So I just want to thank Miss Chisco, Miss Ryder at Miller School, and Miss Whittle, Miss Blaine, Mr. Medica, Mr. Goodwin, Miss Fuller, Miss Fenton. They're teachers on the Orange team at Fernwood. So hopefully I didn't miss anyone's name, but just to thank all of them for all that they do. Um, you all know middle school children are very unique and they have a lot of personality. But I just wanted to say thank you to them, to have the opportunity to give them a shout out and to tell them I appreciate all that they do for my children.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gilbert Floyd. Are there any other comments from board members? Seeing none, I'm going to ask administration. Any comments?
Mr. Castellano, I'd just like to reiterate, the great things that I heard tonight, and as well as the concerns. We will address them. And I too, I was very proud of our teachers, our staff, and all the departments that we have in our school district. And in the beginning of my term as superintendent, I said, we're all about building relationships. And as Ms. Gilbert Floyd said and Mrs. Wazen said, this truly is a time where we have come together and embraced each other and shown the love, compassion, and passion. I have to really highlight that, and we all have to just sit back and appreciate not only the great things that we have going on academically, but the relationship piece. And that's what's important right now for everybody in this world. And just knowing that we have the care and love out there, I can go to bed at night and rest well. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to the Board of Education for your support. Let's continue staying the course and doing all the great things that we do for students. Thank you.
And I just wanted to say, Dr. Guccio, thank you. And thank you to your administrative team. And I'm saying that from a parent's perspective, and I'm also saying it as a person who works in a school system. And I just had to say this to the public, and it is not an easy task to run a school, let alone a school district of Egg Harbor Township size, the largest in Atlantic County. It is not easy. And to be thrown this curveball and to jump in there and get things done, I'm just saying I appreciate it. And I know it's not easy, and it's a difficult task. And your administrative team, really jumped in, all hands on deck. So I appreciate that. And I know a lot of times, Dr. Fisher, you probably don't hear this, but thank you. Mrs. Santilli, thank you. Mr. Naya, thank you. So yeah, being in a leadership position is not an easy job. So I just want to say I see you, and I thank you, and I'm sure all the other board members feel that way. So
thank you. And that's a thanks from all of us. Appreciate it.
Yes, I would certainly echo that as well. Any other comment? I guess at this point, I'm going to take just the opportunity again to thank everyone for participating, everyone who was part of the meeting, those who are viewing. These are unprecedented and difficult times, and I believe this district and the board will continue to do the very best we can to balance all the needs that are in front of us. We have to take care of our students. We have to be mindful of our taxpayers, and this is not an easy time. But again, being EHT proud and EHT strong, I know we're going to get through this and we're going to come out the other end stronger. So I want to thank everyone again for participating. And at this point, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Everyone will just signify raising their hands, aye, and we will be adjourned. Good evening, everyone.
Good night.